Okay, my friends, it is Oddly Timbot, your professor, and I'm just checking in with a quick overview of one of the tools that we use in the Unity game development course. So, the approach that we take with this course is to start out very simple, to focus on fun, interactive gameplay with very simple graphics, and then later we will dive into art direction. So this is a very typical way that a game would get developed, even from a small studio up to a very large studio. We've learned that we need to focus primarily on the game elements and not get too caught up in the graphics initially. Now, of course, we're going to want to circle back later on, and that gets us, moving from gameplay and game programming into art direction. But we kind of hold on off on that initially so that we can iterate faster with simple graphics. Now, what we have here is a file that in a series of scenes that you can see down here, and I'm going to talk about scenes, sort of walk you through the basic steps of creating a game with Unity. So to start off with, we can see that it's very, very simple. On the left here, we have our world, our gameplay world. Now, to have a world in Unity, in any game really, you need a few elements. First off, you need some kind of a light, otherwise you won't be able to see anything. And you need a camera, which represents the view of your users who are playing the game. Now in this case, we've also added in a player and we've added in a ground plane. Very, very straightforward. In the initial classes, we're basically going to walk you through how to navigate around through all these panels. We're going to do a quick overview of what each of these windows is for, and we'll walk through them one by one in a lot more detail. But this is just kind of a quick overview of how you're going to put a game together inside Unity. So in the beginning, we have just a couple of elements here. And in order to add interactivity to our world, we get into doing a little bit of code. Now, you may not have a lot of experience with code. You may be worried about that. But let me show you something that is a nice feature of Unity. So I'm going to click on the player to highlight them. And over here on the right, you can see that I've got my first script or my first item of code added to the player. And what does this do? Well, if I want to review it really quickly, I can actually run my game anytime just by hitting this play button, just like you're watching a YouTube video. And now you can see, whoa, my guy goes flying off here. All right. So we have achieved very, very basic movement. Now that may not seem like much, but the first time that you get an item in your world moving around on its own like that, that's really exciting. Let's take a quick look at that script. We're not going to dive into it, but I just want to show you that basically we're looking at relatively few lines of code here. Pretty interesting, right? So here's that... there's that player movement, or sorry, player controller right here. And you can see that in total, it is less than 30 lines of code. And a bunch of the lines of code here have actually been generated by Unity for us. So really, we're probably looking at less than 20 lines of code. And if we take away these little curly braces here, which, we're going to talk about what all of this is used for, really you're looking at about 10 lines of code. And what that tells us about the Unity game development engine here is that it uses what's called a compositional pattern. In other words, if I want to be able to control my little player character here, my little white cube, that's going to be a very small script. And then when I want to, for instance, know if he's bumping into things, that's going to be another small script. And then if I want to know if the thing that he's bumping into is like some kind of obstacle or reward or enemy, that again will be another small script. And so what you end up with is a bunch of small, relatively uncomplex programs working all together. So here, let's advance this game along a little bit. I'm going to open up my second scene here, which is collision detection. And so now you can see I've got a couple of obstacles layered around here. And So let me give that a run. And in the right hand view here, we can now see like I'm able to rotate my player around. I've got forward movement, and so now I've got a bit of a mechanic going on here. Now at this point, you might start thinking of game concepts, right? So maybe this is going to be a stealth game, or maybe it'll be a racing game or something like that, right? But we've got basically movement, and we've got collision detection just like this. I can't go through those obstacles. And then what you don't see that's inside of here is that I've also got an objective, so an area that we should try and reach, and we've got a trap, right? So now we've got if this is an obstacle-based game or some type of runner game or something like that, we've kind of got all the elements that we need inside of here. Now, of course, I can still fall off the world. So this is far from being a complete game. But you can see we've gone from very, uncontrolled movement to player-controlled movement, to having obstacles, to having an objective, to having some kind of a setup for a trap here as well, right? So, and doing so simply means adding on a few more scripts inside of here and a couple more gameplay elements. So then if we were to continue moving this along, let's bring up our fourth scene here, where we actually have some enemies inside of here. And let's give this a run. So remember, we had obstacles, we had an objective, we had a trap. We've got the basic world elements like a ground plane and a player character and a light to light the whole scene. So let's see what we've got now. All right, so there is our little zombies or what have you, right? And they're smart enough that they know to basically start chasing when I get too close. Wah! Let's give it another run here just so we can take a little bit better look at that. Right? So we show you how to do all kinds of things like set the aggression levels, and we can make them, kind of smarter or dumber. We can control how much they push us around and so forth. And, so they've got a little bit of a basic intelligence going on here. These NPCs that are here to attack us, essentially. So now we're really starting to dial in on a game. We've got world elements. We've got world design with these walls and these objectives and traps and so forth. And now we've introduced this kind of random element here where we've got some enemies chasing us. And once we've got that in place, we're able to start putting together the actual game design. And to do that, we introduce this concept of the game controller, which is kind of our fifth scene right here. And here's our game controller, which is really just another object in the world who is there only for us to add a little piece of code on. And you can see right here, I've now got this figure called player health, right? And so if we give this a run, you can see that we're now starting to actually turn it into a game. Up to now, it's been a collection of game mechanics, and that allows us to do testing and have a lot of fun and see if, we've got something fun going on here. But now, if we run it, and once we get attacked by zombies and so forth, they can actually kill me. You see? Pretty cool, right? So now, we've come pretty far in about 5 steps here, using a collection of scripts working together, each of which add a little something to the gameplay mechanic. Now, at this time, we haven't done a lot of the things that you might think of when you think about building a game. We don't have any animations on our character. We haven't added in any fancy models. We haven't played with the lighting effects. There are no particles happening here and so forth. But that is by design, right? Because if we dive into those things too soon, we are actually going to slow down our learning. We're going to slow down our development of a game. And this is a classic trap that even large studios fall into, where they sort of, fall for their own pretty graphics and wind up with a game that maybe looks nice in a screenshot, but actually doesn't play that well. That's the situation we want to avoid. So we kind of race ahead with examining all kinds of different gameplay mechanics, from things like adding forces to dealing with ballistics to dealing with collision detection and reaction and so forth, and basically give you a really good toolkit of things that you need to build a fun game. And then after that, you can either work with the team of artists, or if that's what you want to do in your game, you can proceed along to using simple tools like Magic of Voxel, and then from there move all the way on up to modeling in Maya and so forth, if you are very, very keen about the art track of game design and development. So that's just a really quick overview, and I'm going to look forward to walking you through these steps one by one. We have some more resources for you as well. I'll bring up very quickly the Oddly Studios Unity Demos repo here. And inside of here, you're going to find a whole bunch of, very basic demos of different game mechanics and UI elements that you can use in putting together a game of your own. So it's going to be great, and look forward to diving into this course with all of you guys. Let's build some games.